The narrative of the lost continent of Atlantis has been the greatest enigma of all time for centuries. This mythical civilization has captured the imaginations of people everywhere. There are tales of advanced technology, vast wealth, and unknown treasures that have yet to be discovered. Was Atlantis a myth, or did it actually exist? And if so, what happened to it? The Plato Atlantis. It is not by accident that we have been so intrigued by the legends of Atlantis, because in a certain sense our current race and civilization began with Atlantis. But where does this belief originate? The origin of the legend of this enigmatic sunken island can be traced to one of the earliest and most renowned accounts. Around 360 BC, two of Plato's dialogues, Critias and Timaeus, contain references to Atlantis. In these dialogues, Plato described in detail a country on bountiful land that he named Atlantis. He describes it as a colossal island that was located in the area around 10,000 BC before it sank. Beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which are commonly believed to refer to the Strait of Gibraltar, is the Atlantic Ocean. Plato's knowledge of Atlantis probably originated with Solon, an Athenian legislator and philosopher who, on a trip to Egypt around 600 BC, discovered about the existence of a great civilization. Plato was fascinated by Atlantis, which he believed to have existed 9,000 years ago. To learn more, he consulted with Pythagorean students and others who were familiar with his work. Plato undoubtedly possessed primordial mythological, historical, and geological knowledge, and he received some of his knowledge from initiates who were members of secret brotherhoods preserving the past. As you know, these mystery schools concealed knowledge from the uninitiated. It helped secure the safety of knowledge during times of danger. Plato refrained from it for the majority of his life. As he neared the end of his life, he began writing about Atlantis and passing on his knowledge of the sunken continent in an effort to preserve the heritage of the lost civilization for future generations. Plato's account of Atlantis demonstrates that he had access to ancient documents, as in the remarkable Library of Alexandria was founded by the Atlanteans in 10,300 BC. Atlantis was a massive island, perhaps the size of Western Europe, but it was by no means the largest. According to him, it was the size of a real continent and boasted an abundance of natural resources, especially metals, including the renowned and enigmatic orichalcum. Atlantis's capital was situated on the south coast of the island and was connected to the sea. The city was surrounded by 3 concentric rings that were separated by moats. The diameter of the inner citadel was approximately 5 kilometers, while the total walk area measured 23 kilometers, which made the city roughly twice as large as Imperial Rome, situated on the central island. According to Plato, Atlanteans possessed the Palace of the Kings and the principal temple of Atlantis. This level of wealth has never before been possessed by kings or dictators and is extremely unlikely. The few items that the city and island could not provide themselves were delivered to them due to the grandeur of their empire. Atlantis, as described by Critias, survives incompletely, but another of his dialogues does. According to the laws we learned, Atlantis was annihilated in a single day and night by a cataclysmic event, followed by a lengthy dark age in which the arts and sciences disappeared. But can we believe Plato's account of Atlantis? And do we know how the surface of the continent looked? The Earth, specifically the region around the northwest coast of Africa, appeared to be more than 12 billion years old. Despite Plato's account, Atlantis did not exist 10,000 years ago when it was believed to have existed. Certainly fascinating information about the existence of Atlantis, but it does not prove its existence. To obtain sufficient information regarding the precise location of Atlantis, we must turn to geology and oceanography to study the evolution of the world's oceans. It is theorized that Atlantis was a volcanic continent situated in the myth-authentic rich region and principally connected to Europe. From Africa and North America, connected by transitory land bridges, Atlantis's vast territorial expansion originates. It existed until its demise 23 to 5.3 million years ago, forming a nearly continuous landmass extending from what is now the northern Appalachian continent to the southern point of Africa. Atlantis existed as 2 distinct islands, Ruda or Poseidonis in the north and Daitya in the south. Prior to the last ice period, the northern island of Poseidonis existed as a substantial landmass. It is believed that the island sank as a consequence of tectonic movements and a general rise in global sea levels. The Azores and Madeira are among the last remaining landmasses of the Atlantic continent. The mid-Atlantic ridge would appear as a ridge if the ocean's waters were removed to reveal the seafloor, and it is a continuous mountain range comparable in length to the combined Andes and Rocky Mountains of North America. and comparable to the Himalayas in altitude. The Azores, Madeira, Cape Verde, and the Canary Islands are merely the greatest peaks of this submerged chain. So, what was Atlantis? Located there during the Middle Ages, the majority of ancient texts, such as Plato's The Legend of Atlantis, vanished. It wasn't until the Renaissance that people began to turn back and rediscover ancient civilizations. During the past 500 years, a resurgence of interest in this sunken island has been documented by numerous sources. There are hypotheses about a lost continent in the Atlantic Ocean, but do they fit the narrative of Plato? Or do they conceal another body of knowledge? And do we know who they belong to? How were the Atlanteans and their civilization created? Were extraterrestrials involved? Atlantis, as many believe, is the subject of an intriguing and somewhat esoteric theory. Ishmael Perez's new and very intriguing book on Atlantis's origins is now available for purchase. In it, he asserts that Atlantis was founded by humanoid entities from the Pleiades. They were able to integrate and maintain the equilibrium between the spiritual and physical fifth dimension and material worlds, and as a consequence achieved a high level of technological advancement in harmony with the spiritually. The preceding great civilization, that of Lemuria or Mu, was solely focused on the afterlife. They progressively lose touch with physical reality and the lower dimensions as they become more spiritual. Their mission was to elevate the level of consciousness on the planet, but without the well-integrated lower dimensions, Atlantis was the key to connecting the law to the high dimensions and integrating the two polarities in accordance with esoteric teachings. Humanity evolves through 7 great evolutionary cycles or fundamental races, according to Theosophy. Each root race has physical and mental characteristics that progressively evolve the planet's collective consciousness. In addition to possessing distinctively distinct mental characteristics from its predecessor, each root race has a specific mission. Helena believed that the 4th root race was the genuinely human and terrestrial race that followed Atlantis. According to Blavatsky, a Russian mystic and occultist, the 4th root race emerged around 8 million years ago. She dubbed it the race of the Red Man, but the beginning of the Atlantean era in which the Atlantean civilization spread from its island home to the rest of the world. Each world age or period has been separated from the preceding one by a major natural catastrophe. What do we know about Earth catastrophes, of which the ultimate submersion of Atlantis in 9600 BC was the most recent? Although theosophical teaching describes the 4th race as giants, the Atlanteans resembled them, but their bodies were shorter than those of the Lemurians, who were relatively taller than us. This spawned numerous legends of Cyclops and Titans, which are mentioned in numerous ancient traditions. According to Blavatsky, the Atlanteans taught the pinnacle of physical achievement. Then, she says, came the Azanthians, the giants whose physical beauty and fortitude surpassed all others. In principle, in accordance with evolutionary law, the Atlanteans reached their zenith with a 3rd eye evolved during the Lemurian race, which at the time had spiritual functions, but with the enhancement of the human structure, the materialism and the decay of humanity, the 3rd eye progressively vanished. Edgar Cayce, the famous psychic and healer, also discusses life. The majority of the information in Atlantis pertains to the last 20,000 years of the civilization's existence. However, it also describes the earliest phases of human evolution. As Cayce explains that people first appeared simultaneously in 5 locations on Earth: the yellow race in Gabi, the white in the Carpathians, the red in the Atlantic and American regions, the brown in the Andes, and the black in Africa. Based on these events that occurred more than 10,500,000 years ago, we learn that the 5 races diverged more than 10,500,000 years ago. Were the sons of God mentioned in the Bible mistakenly paired with the daughters of men? Mating were in fact the first strange forms left over from the earliest experiments at material projection produced a race of hybrids. Regarding these hybrids, one faction, the children of the Law of One, desired to retain them and keep the human race pure, but assisted hybrids in regaining their status as God's creatures. Sons of Belial only believed in sensual gratification and enslaved hybrids. According to Cayce, Atlantis vanished in 3 distinct catastrophes between 50,000 BCE and 28,000 BCE. The first of these occurred in 10,000 BCE, due to the use of refined technology for destructive purposes. The second devastation was preceded by conflict between the 2 factions, and then the offspring of the victorious faction. During the period of Law of Unity, people migrated to Peru, Yucatan, Nevada, Colorado, the Pyrenees, and Egypt. Atlantis society's Egypt attained a high level of civilization during the final third of Atlantis's existence. The pyramids and the Sphinx were constructed, But let's look at a different tale involving the Galactic Federation and alien entities battling for control of Earth are depicted in this account of the founding of the Atlantis colony. Matthias de Stefano gives Atlantean civilization to an indigo infant who recalls his distant ancestors' past existence in the Atlantean colony of Camp, present-day Egypt. Matthias relates that Atlantis was constructed in 16,000 BCE. A race of extraterrestrial giants known as the Annunaki inhabited the Azores, Canaries, and Cape Green Islands. The Azir arrived on Earth in search of a home and to excavate. They settled in the Middle East, where they conducted DNA research with the planet. The offspring of Azur and humans were bred to produce the optimal life form for the planet. The Atlanteans selected for the truth and the only means for the Azir to survive on Earth and maintain their existence. Using their acquired knowledge, the Eyes have divided into two factions, one that uses humans as captives and the other that does not. The beneficent portion of the Izar and the Arcturians took part in their guiding and educating their descendants in order to safeguard them and permit them to develop independently without interference. Direct interference of advanced extraterrestrial civilizations led to the selection of 12 offspring, storing data from each constellation to create the 12 major families of Atlantis. The first islands to be colonized were Kaifu, Cape Green Acres in the Canary Islands, and Unik, the capital of the Azores. Similar to Plato's description, Hafiz, the capital of the empire, was circular in form. At the height of the Atlantean Empire, the islands were home to approximately 300,000 individuals. Due to the prevalence of Arcturian DNA, the Atlanteans had blue blood and maintained a pure bloodline to safeguard their knowledge from the Star People and guide the remainder of humanity if the Lemurian race should perish. The civilization preceding Atlantis pursued a higher level of consciousness by introspection. The Atlanteans were focused on the material world. They created devices to transmit information and use vibration to influence the world around them. They could heal and regenerate their bodies by connecting to the planet's energy through them. Thus, sophisticated technology and cosmic knowledge of energy use provided the Atlanteans with access to other dimensions, incredible benefits and capabilities. But as we all know, everything is only excellent when it is in balance. And what happens when the balance is disturbed is an intriguing topic. In the majority of the numerous essays Atlantis Construction, the following stories contain sources of information regarding the trajectory of Atlantis's development. The Atlanteans commenced their evolution in a manner similar to that of the recipients of the knowledge of Lemuria. For thousands of years they adhered to the principles inherited from the spiritual. However, they also attained unparalleled technological success, proving their claim. The equilibrium between the inner and the outer was disrupted at some point. However, part of the Atlanteans began to seek dominance over the entire planet. They began exploiting the environment. Some claim the technology they've created is causing a pole shift, while others say they've orchestrated the catastrophe. This is the time when they are firing energy weapons at themselves, causing the continent to descend into esoteric beliefs. After the fall, humanity loses most of its energy capabilities and enters the Dark Age. Vital force. In our consciousness, Atlantis is remembered as the cradle of everything occult and esoteric. Because they had mastered the use of the so-called life force for such a long time, they possessed extensive knowledge. Adventists flourished initially, and Atlantis was founded in accordance with Time Adventism, the principles of Lemuria that governed things in accordance with the celestial order of light throughout all of history. 4 sister colonies regard Lemuria as their motherland. Lemuria was a symbol of the feminine. On the basis of a principle based on liberty, harmony, and spiritual community, the earliest Avantians lived in a utopia. Society, like the Lemurians, venerated the divine feminine and sought harmony with the divine. Edgar Cayce described the early inhabitants of Atlantis as intelligent individuals who had intuitively influential individuals with access to the future and the past accomplish this. By developing the right side of their children's brains and by valuing their insights, we are more receptive to our psychic senses and dreams as infants, not only because we are very young, we are near the other side of life, but our speech is not completely developed, so we must rely on sign language. Our emotions and senses connect us to the physical universe. The Atlanteans believed their children. As adults, some learn how to use their psychic abilities and rely primarily on their intuition. Some developed extraordinary mental discipline and devoted their lives to employing the knowledge they had acquired. The Atlanteans' way of existence also contributed to the preservation of their species. They had psychic abilities because they were always in direct contact with nature. Rudolf Steiner believed that the Atlanteans were the first to discover how to convert the life force into a force that can be applied for technological purposes. a process by which a great number of people are engaged. Steiner questions whether any of the apparent miracles attributed to Atlantean science were conducted. He identifies this force as a force innate to all living entities that manifests through anciently. The processes of germination and growth were referred to as prana or mana. In the 19th and 20th centuries, occultists knew it as frill, which signified the universal principle of life. Atlanteans possessed energy life force or life magnetism command over the life force of actual powers nearly superhuman over the complete world of manifestation and other spiritual realities with the actual. The Atlanteans were able to control time, manipulate matter, reverse gravity, while also developing a technology that provides limitless energy to fuel all mechanical devices that, while distinct from ours, is in many respects superior to our wild fields and lush green forests. These magnificent lands were not defaced by concrete and metal strips to facilitate quick travel by bullet trains and automobiles. Instead, people were able to live without polluting and in happiness. Edgar Cayce's texts, meanwhile, concern the environment and depletion of natural resources. Describe the Atlanteans' acquisition of power from the Great Crystal through sound and the crystal's fragmentation of the atom. He claims that with the energy flowing from the crystal, the people of Atlantis enjoyed traveling through air, water, and the ocean's depths, voice transmission over great distances, and underwater travel. Benefits of lasers. When will we be able to fly freely in space like the Atlanteans? How did they specifically extricate and direct this life energy using their advanced skills? Atlanteans were able to derive energy from a variety of alternative sources, such as the sun, the psyche, the Earth's magnetic field, and sound. The first essential crystal mentioned by Edgar Cayce is the Twawe stone in Atlantis. The Atlanteans initially amplified the light that its 6 sides reflected, received from the sun to facilitate meditation and contemplation, and to communicate with the spirit. Thousands of years ago, as humans became more materialistic, priests perfected the domain. The enormous crystal which magnified and directed the energy it accumulated when properly manipulated, on and beneath the source of infinite power, Atlanteans acquired the ability to travel through the air, water to construct the huge multi-faced stone. The Atlantean scientists inserted a large piece of in this experiment. A solar-type transducer comprised a solar-cut quartz crystal atop a structure open space. The crystal's facets focused the sun's rays in a parabolic fashion. A movable dome over the top of the intricate quartz stone made it possible for experienced engineers to regulate the quantity of light exposure from above. The Atlantean structure lined it with windows. Cayce describes a central power plant as containing a crystal made of an insulating material similar to asbestos. Earth provided the energy from the vast crystal that enabled the Atlanteans to triumph. According to Cayce, strong beams from the Great Crystal transmitted energy to receptor crystals, which were charred. From there, the energy could be used to propel an electric or thermal engine. This was one of many examples of the Atlanteans' ability to construct a vehicle or other mechanical device. Cayce also mentions that the large crystal could have received energy via wireless transmission. Numerous ships have heard tales of the Bermuda Triangle from numerous sources in outer space, and low-flying aircraft have vanished without explanation in the Bermuda Triangle. Occasionally, pilots will report that their engines lose power if their radios are operational. Their compasses rotate anti-clockwise, and other navigational apparatus behaves erratically or abruptly stops functioning. Passengers discover that they, along with their ships or planes, are stranded. Could a potent crystal from the time of Atlantis, hidden by dense fog, be causing these disturbances? What if concealed beneath the water is a crystal that absorbs the sun's rays and transmits energy? The instant another vehicle crosses it, we have explored the various narratives, theories regarding the origin of Atlantis, its inhabitants, and some of the technologies they utilized. But what caused its demise? Did this powerful civilization vanish due to a random event, a natural catastrophe, or did they cause their own extinction? Please click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you never miss a new movie. Thank you for watching.